So tonight's episode of Preacher had an interesting open. It opened with the Asian fellow, mysterious dude, transferring something from one person to another. I originally thought it was just some kind of organ in the body, but knowing Preacher, crazy things can happen. Turns out he's just transferring souls from person to person. And it was cool. It kind of had a Ghostbusters feel to it. I like how it showed on that meter thing how much percentage they're either taking out of someone's soul or putting into somebody's soul. So that was pretty cool. It opened a new door to something that could be used very well on the show. I have no idea about it. I'm only started the comics recently, so it's interesting. I don't know where it goes with this, but I like how it's going so far. And it's cool how to wrap back to the deal that Preacher made with the Saint of Killers that's like, look, I'll give you a soul and get you to heaven if you don't kill me and my friends. And Preacher cleverly fools the Saint of Killers, and then because he has a soul, he can tell him what to do. Very cool how Preacher figured that out, and it was super smart on his end and quick thinking. The episode as a whole, I wasn't crazy about. It moved pretty slow. The show usually moves slow, but for season 2, this was definitely a slower burn, and I thought that library scene was really too easy to explain to our three main people who the Saint of Killers was. And we already knew who he was, too. So it was kind of annoying to rewatch it all again in that comic strippy form. I'm not crazy about it in TV shows when they do that. It's just too easy. It's like, you got to give me a better way for them to figure out and keep me interested. It was just kind of like a cheat thing, because they can just keep going back to that library to find out about anybody. So, I don't know. It was still funny, though. They had, like, the Psycho tapes you're listening to, and then they had the Dick Cheney joke they threw in. And again, any line Cassidy says in this show is excellent. The guy steals every single scene he's in. Literally every scene. And he's one of my favorite characters on television right now. And again, just in this episode alone, just learning about that was his son he was coming to make sure was okay when they remembered that he was at the hotel. That was hysterical too, that he forgot. Like, oh shit, my son's there and the Saint of Killers are there. That was so funny. But Cassidy, it makes him more likable in a way. He's more likable than Preacher, honestly. Like, he's just so easy to relate to, and he's such a good heart in a way. And it's so cool because he's like this vampire monster thing, and he's just a genuine dude. And I really like the scene with Tulip when Saint of Killers picks her up. And that's interesting how they're opening that door of like, okay, Saint of Killers touched Tulip. What does that exactly mean for her? That's obviously going to change your character somewhat in the same way that Jesse is going to get changed by losing 1% of his soul. And it's interesting because Jesse has experience with this and knows about this whole soul swapping system. So kind of got a hint of like, okay, Jesse knows a lot he's not telling Tulip and Cassidy. So that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But again, it is brutal what the Preacher did to the Saint of Killers by just having him in an armored van in a swamp, and he's just going to be in there suffocating. I don't know if the Saint of Killers just dies by natural causes, but probably not. So he's just in there. Brutal, but a great move on Preacher's part. He doesn't want him to go to hell and bring the Jesse soul with him. And maybe he was thinking about Arseface too. And I think that was there. I was feeling that Preacher, that reminded him just saying the word hell, that Arseface is down there. He probably doesn't want Saint of Killers even near Arseface. That's what I'm taking it as. But overall, this episode definitely felt slow, and a big complaint I have is how many commercials are sneaking in this show now. AMC has got to pull back a bit. I know they're trying to make some money like any business is, but man, I really think it hurt this episode in particular because there was a lot they had to explain and you kind of had to stay with it, but it's just commercial. I felt like the most commercials I've seen in a Preacher episode, so I hope they have less of that. That can be very frustrating watching an AMC show, especially people who watch Walking Dead. You know what I'm talking about. But overall, I'm going to give this episode a 7. It wasn't great, wasn't memorable, but it did progress the plot in a good way. We dealt with the Saint of Killers. We learned more about people, especially Jesse. And we're going to see now how this affects Tulip and Cassidy, too. So I'm excited to see where this goes. We're pretty much halfway through the season. And so far, it's been way better than Season 1. But I will say, since the beginning of Season 2, it's taken a little bit of a downhill turn. It's slowed down. And I feel like it's lost a lot of momentum. We haven't seen Arseface in a while. We had that New Orleans vibe. I haven't felt it recently. It almost felt like some of the shots in this episode were just in a different place completely. Especially those van shots when Jesse's looking for the soul. Wasn't crazy about that. So they got to find where they really are going with this. I trust them, but we'll see. So hopefully it gets back to that pace the first couple episodes had in season 2. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I review every Preacher episode and every Game of Thrones episode currently, and I'm doing The Sinner next week, which is premiering on USA. Check that show out. I'll be reviewing each episode, and I do movie reviews, everything under the sun. Please keep coming back, and let me know your comments on the episode. I respond to everybody. Tell me if you liked it, didn't like it. Tell me if you liked my review. Tell me if you didn't like my review. I can handle anything. Just please keep coming back. Thanks.